or the cave art and rock art present during the Mesolithic culture. So, in continuation to that, we'll discuss here today the MAN-002 archaeological anthropology, and that is the Neolithic and Chalcolithic culture. Neolithic and Chalcolithic culture. So, as we are there about the nomenclature of Neolithic, which indicates about a new Stone Age culture. New Stone Age culture, where new stand for new. And the Chalcolithic culture, where Chalco sorry, stand for metal. So metal is culture. So here we'll discuss three major things. One is the Neolithic culture, and if you will remember properly, at the very first class, we discussed about the Neolithic revolution, the concept given by V. Gordon Child, based on four major areas of development. So this part we'll discuss in the name of Neolithic revolution. Also, we'll try to understand the different regional variants of Neolithic culture, because even if the evidences of Neolithic is found from different parts of the world, but based on the locality, based on the environmental condition, based on the ecology, based on the climatic condition, there is slightly change. There is some slightly variation in Neolithic sites. So that also we'll try to understand. We'll discuss. Then we'll discuss the Chalcolithic culture, where we will discuss how the metal was introduced into the human cultural evolution, and because of introduction of metal, how the culture started growing very fast, very rapidly. And at the end, we will also discuss the megalithic culture. So, megalithic, mega means the big, lithic means the stone, the big stone culture, and that is somehow correlated with the Iron Age culture. So, here we are going to discuss these three areas. One, we are going to discuss the Neolithic, another is the Chalcolithic, and last one is the megalithic culture. So, when we are discussing about the cultural evolution, we are having evidences both from the climatic or environmental point of view as well as cultural point of view. As we discussed earlier, how Mesolithic differ from Paleolithic, or what is the difference between Mesolithic and Neolithic. So, in the similar context, in a similar way, we'll try to identify the factor behind change in culture during the Holocene epoch. As we are aware that Holocene means the recent period where there was a change in environmental condition, climatic condition, temperature increase. And Mesolithic culture is the first prehistoric culture which occurred during the early part of Holocene epoch. Following the Mesolithic, we are having Neolithic culture. So here the Neolithic or New Stone Age. So it came between Mesolithic culture and Chalcolithic culture. In one side, as we discussed yesterday, that Mesolithic is the connecting link which connects the Paleolithic and Neolithic. In the similar way, sorry, the Neolithic is the terminal phase or last phase of prehistoric Stone Age culture or last phase of the Stone Age culture. Until this Neolithic time, metal was completely unaware. Use of metal was completely unaware by the prehistoric people, or in other language we can say metal was not introduced up to the time of Neolithic culture. So after that, metal was introduced to human culture and which brought a drastic change. So in Neolithic, as we are discussing, Neolithic means new Stone Age culture, where some specific kind of stone artifacts were introduced. And as V. Gordon-Child rightly said, the Neolithic Revolution means the revolution, the change, the drastic change came into human culture. V. Gordon-Child told Neolithic Revolution because of four new things introduced during the Neolithic time. Till Mesolithic period, people were depending on the natural rock shelters for their habitation. And as we discussed, they were mainly depending on hunting, gathering, and fishing economy. What are these? Hunting, gathering, and fishing. But with the change of environmental condition, the plant and animal remains during that particular time started changing from their earlier earlier varieties. And on the other end, the size of population started increasing. So one side there is a change in plant and animal remains because of the environmental change, and other side increasing number of population. So this increasing number of population force human being to search an alternate means of subsistence or some additional food materials. That's why they started exploiting, they started using different kind of grasses and their seeds, their leaves, their flowers, and similarly started using different kind of crops, vegetables. So because of this population pressure, these food sorry, these food materials were not sufficient for their survival. These are not sufficient for their survival. So for use of different plant and animal remains. Around the year, sorry, around the year, force human being to start domesticating the plant remains. And and this pressure leads them to start agriculture. So they collected the seeds, beans from the wild crops, wild grasses, and used for their consumption. And from that, a particular percentage they store for harvesting in the later stage of time. So, in one side, these crops, seeds, cereals help them for their need relating to the subsistence, and also indirectly it pressurizes them to start the settled life at a particular place. So if we'll discuss how these crops or how these use of crops or seeds, beans, pressurize them to stay at a particular place. So the answer is usually a particular crops or paddy takes 2 to 3 months for completing its process from beginning to harvesting stage. And since they started cultivating these crops, and there was a possibility of destruction of those crops by different wild animals, because they were cultivating these crops close to the water bodies, and these water bodies are the place where the wild animals visits frequently. So therefore, these Neolithic people started camping close to their agricultural field or agricultural land till the time of harvesting, and which is about 3 to 4 months. So out of 12 months, if they are staying at a particular place for about 3 to 4 months, which force them to continue staying at the same place, and other than this agricultural time period, they were staying there and collecting other food material resources from the surrounding area, and continuation in their staying at a particular place indirectly leads to have a bigger settlement. So in course of time, their population size increase, their requirement increase, and because of that, they started preparing more and more huts at that particular place, and they also extended their cultivable land. So this is completely new to the Neolithic people. So this is one factor for what V. Gordon Child told Neolithic Revolution. And what is this? This is the introduction of agriculture or origin of agriculture, or we may say domestication of plant. Domestication of plant, because plants were there, grasses were there, bushes were there, but all were growing natural way, which was not maintained, controlled, regulated by the human being. But it was the time period when human being started regulating, monitoring, or harvesting these wild crops based on their requirement. So they converted such kind of wild plants, wild grasses, or wild crops into domesticated form. So wild to domesticated. So this is one factor. Factor number two, that is the domestication of animals. Domestication of animals. Domestication of animals. So the main animal relationship, as we discussed earlier, is very ancient and which is continuing since the time of human origin. Since the time of human origin, human being, we are depending on the different natural products, including the plants. Including the plants. And in a similar way, they were also exploiting different kind of animals for their subsistence, or we may say for their survival. So for this particular purpose, they were hunting different type of animals, sometimes the big animals or big game, sometimes the small animals and birds. So the relationship of prey or relationship of animals with the human being was very close. But that time they were solely depending on the wild animals. They were hunting these wild animals from the nearby forest or their local ecosystem, local ecology. But there was a not any kind of food security or surety of getting any kind of animals at the time of need. So even if they were the hunter gatherers, sometimes they were hunting individually, sometimes in group way, but there was a no surety about availing such kind of animals or birds during their hunting expedition. This is point number one. So point number two, for the support of domesticated animals in different household activities, including agricultural activities, was also very important from Neolithic revolution point of view. So, as we told, before that, when they were completely depending on the surrounding nature, they were exploiting the wild animals for their food. But here, during the Neolithic time, for the first time, they started domesticating animals, and especially cow, buffaloes, dogs, etc. So there are two major reasons for domesticating animal during the Neolithic period. Number one is that since they started agriculture, since they introduced agriculture for the first time during Neolithic period, and there was a rapid growth of population or increasing population size, which forced them to produce more quantities of plant products, including the cereals, seeds, and beans, and which was very difficult for them to grow only with their manpower. So that's why it was a need of time to take help of different animals in tilling land, in cultivating land. Since they started plowing with the wooden plow and stone plowshare. And for that plowing, they were in need of different animals to drag the plow at the time of tilling the land. And that is the one reason for what they started domesticating animals for taking help in plowing, the transporting their agro-based products from field to their house or their shelter, and at the same time they also started using the different animal waste products for increasing the capacity of production. So they started using the manure of the animals with the fertilizer, which help to increase the quantity of their products. So these are one factor for beginning of domestication of animal. Other factor is that, as we discussed during Pleistocene epochs, there was a regular climatic fluctuations. Sometimes we are evidencing the glaciation, sometimes interglaciation, or at different places pluvial and interpluvial. That was in Pleistocene. But in Holocene also, there was a climatic change, even if this change is not that much big like the Pleistocene, but there was a climatic fluctuation. And these climatic fluctuations during the early part of Holocene in general and Neolithic time in particular forced the Neolithic denizens to look for an alternate food resources. Alternate food resources. Then what are these alternate food resources? Resources, and from where these food resources are available? So these alternate food resources are the plant and animal remains. Plant remains, what we already discussed, different kind of crops, vegetation, what they started growing, cultivating, and the animal remains, especially the cows, oxen, goats, sheep, dog. These are some kind of animal variant domesticated by the Neolithic people for their ready-made support during the time of scarcity. So these animals, we are not only helping them in agriculture activity or their manure was not only supporting them in increasing the production, but at the time of scarcity, at the time of drought, or any kind of problem in availing food, either the plants or animal products. These Neolithic people were taking help of such kind of domesticated animals to overcome that particular problem. We can simplify this statement by saying that these Neolithic people were using their domesticated animals as food at the time of scarcity. So they were using the meat, flesh, or the blood for eating purpose. They were using the skin of domesticated animals to cover their body to protect their body from cold climatic conditions, and at the same time these people were using different animal bones for agriculture and hunting gathering activities. So these domesticated animals were helping the Neolithic people from different point of view. One is a kind of ready-made support in agriculture activity, and other is the ready-made food. This is the point number two of big ordered child. So first we discuss the domestication of plant. Second one is the domestication of animal, and both are very important during Neolithic time. We'll proceed to the point number three, that is the use of ceramics or use of pots. So ceramics or pots were also very important discovery of Neolithic people. So before discussing the use of these pot ceramics, we must have to know that why these pots are required, or why the Neolithic people discovered a new technique, or why they invented the ceramics. The reason is very clear, and firstly, since they started staying at a particular place and started harvesting, cultivating different kind of crops, cereals for their future use when they are not able to get any other food materials. So till that particular time, they were in need of storing these crops, these seeds, these beans. And for that, it was very essential to store this material in a particular place. And because of that, they started developing ceramic pot. At the beginning stage, they are preparing different kind of ceramic remains or pot which are made by hand and not burnt. These are dried on sun. So these kind of pots were used for storing different kind of crops. But these pots were not suitable for storing the liquid materials. And shapes were also not smooth. These are zigzag, sometimes having different type of thickness at different areas. Later, they developed the pottery making technique and introduced the wheel made pot. They started using wheel to give a particular shape to the pot and also started using fire for baking these pots. But these kind of evidences, especially the wheel made pot or the burnt pot or that process with the fire are introduced at later stage of time. But pottery was introduced during the Neolithic time for storing purpose. So and the evidences were found from different Neolithic sites. And number four is the use of grinding and polishing technique. If you are remembering properly, till Mesolithic time, we discuss some stone tool typology and technology which are either introduced at a particular period of time and continued to their next phases or introduced at that particular time. And these tool types are chopper, cleaver, hand axes, flakes, blades, burins, etc. And techniques are maybe anvil, hammerstone, cylinder hammer, pressure flaking, chipping, packing, etc. But apart from these techniques, there were some additional techniques which are first time introduced during the Neolithic time. And these techniques are grinding and polishing. Till Mesolithic period, this grinding and polishing technique was not in a practice, which was not introduced. So Neolithic time, they for the first time introduced these techniques, grinding and polishing. Grinding means the stone tool prepared by using flaking and chippings were grinded on a stone surface or of an rough surface to make it more smooth. And polishing is again grinding with a fine stone to make it more sharp. And because of that, the Neolithic tools, particularly the axe, adze, chisel, are having different look from the tool typologies of earlier phases. So these tools are basically having very smooth surface both at its obverse and reverse sides, and the working edge is very thin and sharp. So this thinness and sharpness of artifacts helps in cutting, tilling any kind of material object in a very perfect way, or this particular X were used in the plowshare, which help in tilling the land. So these particular techniques, grinding and polishing, were for the first time introduced during the Neolithic period. And because of these four things, one is domestication of plant, domestication of animals, use of ceramics, and introduction of grinding and polishing technique. The V. Gordon Child called this Neolithic culture as the Neolithic Revolution. So now it is very clear that Neolithic culture is having some specific tool typologies and specific tool technologies, and which help them in growing the quantity of their production. So these four factors help them to change not only in their activity or economy, but also it leads them to stay at a particular place for a longer period of time. Or, in other words, we can say that these four factors are somehow responsible for settled way of life. So the time period of this Neolithic used to vary from place to place. As we discussed earlier, usually the Holocene epoch began towards the 10,000 year BP, and the Mesolithic culture continued from 10,000 years to 8,000 year BP, and from 8,000 years onwards and up to 4,000 years the Neolithic culture continued. But this particular time period from 8,000 years to 4,000 years BP is not equally present in each and every sites. In some sites, Neolithic culture is evident from the 8,000 year BP, whereas it is 4,000 year BP in some other sites. So it used to differ from place to place. So here, if we'll see the regional pattern or regional variants of Neolithic culture, so we'll see the impact, the influence of local environmental condition, local ecology is highly reflected in Neolithic culture. And therefore, the Neolithic culture of one place is differently evident in other place. If we'll take example from India, we'll see Neolithic culture of northern India, especially the Kashmir, is different from the Neolithic culture of Tamil Nadu or South India, Indian state like Kerala and Karnataka. And sometimes we also you to see notice some kind of variation in Neolithic culture of eastern Indian states. like Odisha, West Bengal, Assam, etc. So this variation is based on two major factors. One is the environmental condition, climatic condition, available raw material and resources, and other is the need of those Neolithic denizens. Let's discuss if some Neolithic people are living on the hilltop or the hill slope or at the foothill area. Usually, they will be more dependable on their forest resources rather than agro-based products. But if the Neolithic people are staying on the coastal area or any plain area, their subsistence will differ. There, the dependence on the forest resources will be comparatively less than the other sides. So, because of that, if we'll see in some sites, the Neolithic is reported along with some seeds and grains cultivated by the Neolithic people. And at the same time, some Neolithic sites are not having such kind of experiences of seeds or any kind of cereals. This is number one. Number two, some of the Neolithic sites are having evidences of stone tools, bones, and at the same time, other Neolithic sites are also having experiences of using ceramics or pots along with the use of stone tools and bone artifacts. And that's why the Neolithic culture is also divided into two types. One is called aceramic aceramic Neolithic, and other is called ceramic Neolithic. Ceramic Neolithic. So, what is the difference between ceramic Neolithic and aceramic Neolithic? The difference is the presence and absence of pottery remains from that particular site. As we discussed earlier, some of the Neolithic sites are having evidences of pottery, usually the grit temper red pottery, which are very thick, and at the other side, some Neolithic sites are not having experience of ceramic remains. Later, we'll discuss the name of the sites of these ceramics and ceramics. This is one of the impact of local ecology, local environment on Neolithic culture. Apart from that, we will see the evidences of some special kind of stone tool in some of the Neolithic site located in a specific region, that is called regional variant. We may take example of solder silt, a kind of silt used by the Neolithic people, which possess the evidences of a shoulder shape at the butt end. At the butt end. So, so this is called the shoulder silt, and these shoulder silts are found only in few areas or to a particular geographical location. And then what is that location where this location is present? That is the eastern part of India, including Odisha, Jharkhand, Assam, and the southern part of China. So these shoulder eggs are present only in this area. Other than this area, these are not available from anywhere. So these are some kind of regional influences. So here also we'll take example of another typical characteristic feature of Neolithic period, which is highly having influences of local of a particular region. So that is the Ash Mound sites, especially discovered in southern part of India. Southern part of India. Ash Mound, ash means a dump, a thick deposition of ash. And this thick deposition of ash indicates about the domestication of animal or the life, pastoral way of life during the Neolithic period. So this ash mound includes some kind of Neolithic artifacts inside the ash deposit, which indicates about the domestication of huge number of animals and for a longer period of time. Huge number of animals and for a longer period of time. So these are some kind of regional influences of Neolithic culture. So in Indian context, if we'll discuss the center of this Neolithic culture is the area located between the Vindhyan range and Gangetic plain of India. So where we are getting different kind of Neolithic evidences, artifacts. So based on these characteristic features, either based on the ceramic and aceramic, based on the ash mound, based on the typology, based on the shape, size, and method of preparation. This Neolithic culture is divided into different stages. The early stages, the advanced stages or late stages, etc. But before that, in some places, the protoform of Neolithic artifacts were also found from the late stage or last stage of Mesolithic. So, based on that, it is called the Proto-Neolithic or Advanced Mesolithic, Proto-Neolithic, or Advanced Mesolithic, where the use of heavy-duty tool, as we discussed yesterday, heavy-duty tools are very common. So, because of the use of heavy-duty tool, because of the protoform of Neolithic artifact, this particular culture is called the Advanced Mesolithic or the Proto-Neolithic. So where we are having evidences of more number of microliths along with the heavy duty tools and early variety of Neolithic axes. So early Neolithic stage includes the different kind of stone tools, especially the axe and chisel, where the presence of ceramic remains are not there. Also, the evidences related to their settlements were also not that very much clear. Because that time they started the settled way of life and usually using the bamboo and woods or the branches of trees for making their huts, and which are not very much durable in nature. But towards the late Neolithic period, the tool typology was slightly changed, slightly developed. The pattern of house construction was improved. The dependency on microlithic tool gradually reduced. And the quantity of production increased, the number of settlement, number of population increased. So these are the different stages of Neolithic and which are categorized based on the available evidences. So here if we'll discuss this Neolithic stage, there are number of sites reported from different parts of India, and of them some are excavated scientifically. If we'll see the excavated Neolithic sites, especially from the Odishan context, we can name the place Kuchai. Kuchai is a place located in northern Odisha, close to the Baripada, which is the first excavated Neolithic site of Odisha. First excavated Neolithic site of Odisha, where the evidences of Neolithic culture was reported from under surface. The excavation was done in 1961. This site was for the first time reported by Padma Shri Paramananda Acharya, who was basically the geologist, and later the site was excavated. And recently there are some other excavation of Neolithic and Chalcolithic site from the coastal Odisha, which includes Galbai, Gopalpur, etc. So these are some Neolithic characteristic features from Indian context. So this Neolithic culture, what we told of the Eastern India, which covers the area of Chhatnapur Plateau and the Assam region, are having some typical characteristic features which are usually not found from other part of the world. So now we'll proceed towards the second phase of Neolithic, which is very close to the Chalcolithic period. In this second phase, evidence of some advanced characteristic features of Neolithic. So here, when we are discussing about the Neolithic, we discuss about the domestication of plants, which is very, very important in Neolithic revolution. So now question is to came in our mind that what are the evidences of domestication of plants found? uh, Sorry, just a minute, just we'll have a break for 2 minutes, then we'll come back again. Sorry. So uh, we are discussing the concluding part of Neolithic Neolithic culture, and the evidences of this particular culture is found from different locality of India, including our eastern India and Odisha. So the continuity of these Neolithic evidences is also evident at the later period of time. But difference is that at later period of time, human being introduced the metal into their culture. And these metals are, are basically copper and bronze. So the introduction of metal into human culture brought a change in their economy, their subsistence, and their activities. So the stone tools, what they were preparing for tilling the land, for cutting the tree, for chopping the woods and bones, were not durable for a long period of time. So Neolithic people, what they did, they prepared the similar kind of artifacts having the shape of X, adze, chisel with the metal, that is copper and bronze, and also use for similar purpose. So these metal these metal objects, metal artifacts we are comparatively durable and more effective because of its sharp working edge. So now thing is coming with the introduction of these metal remains. Which kind of changes are occurred in human culture? So that's what we'll discuss. So when human being introduced the copper, that is called chalcolithic culture. Chalco plus lithic, where chalco stands for metal and lithic stand for stone. So use of both metal, that is the copper and bronze, and stones brought a new way of life, and these metal artifacts help them in quality product, more product in their economic activity. So that's why it is called chalcolithic. And because of more products, because of better products, their mode of living, style of living developed, increase, and since they produce more, again that leads for the storing and preserving the crops. And that is the reason for what the Chalcolithic people started using different varieties of pots for storing these grains and liquid materials. And the size of population started increasing, and that leads for the city life, or from the village life to urban centric life, or in other words we can say the from band society to the tribe society, and tribe to the chiefdom. That time also they developed the construction, or developed the knowledge in constructing houses. They started preparing different kind of mud houses of circular and rectangular varieties, and also with the help of both stones and muds. Such kind of sites are usually very less present during the Mesolithic and Neolithic time. Mesolithic time, they were mainly depending on the rock shelter. Only they are making small holes and pits to cover the shelters. And however, during Neolithic time, they were mainly using the bamboo woods to prepare their wooden huts. Sometimes they were using the stone blocks to support these wooden poles. So they are using the stone, pieces of stones, encircling their huts. But it was the time of Chalcolithic when people started constructing houses in a planned way, and the different parts, different areas of houses are used for different purpose. Example, we can take from the Harappa Mohenjo sites, from the Ahar culture, etc. Where we are having the houses in complex varieties, and the use of specific area for specific purpose, or the specification of area. So based on their use, the houses also used to differ from one to another place. So this Chalcolithic culture or the metallurgic culture is again divided into different types based on its developments. In most of the Chalcolithic evidences, cultural materials are found from the northern and northwestern part of India. We may take example of Ahar, Malwa, Kayatha archaeological sites, or we can take example of the famous Chalcolithic sites, or what we are calling the Harappan sites of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. So these are some typical sites belong to this Chalcolithic cultural period. So in Odisha, these Chalcolithic sites are basically reported from the coastal area, and most famous Chalcolithic sites of Odisha includes Golabai, Gopalpur, and Sankerjong of central India. So Golbai Gopalpurs are located in coastal area. Sankerjong is located in central India near to Onuvul. So these sites evidence about the presence of different type of stone artifacts, stone tools, metal objects, along with the ceramic remains. So their typology, shape, size, and associate finds like the skulls, bones, or any other plant remains indicates about the use of different plants and animals during that particular time. So here some of the Chalcolithic sites, especially of northern India and the Gangetic village, evidence some special kind of ceramic remains pot that is called OCP. OCP means ochre color pot. Ochre means a kind of red color pots, which are comparatively very big and used for different storing purposes. And these OCP are found from the northern part of India, and the extension of this OCP used to go up to the Rajasthan and its neighboring area. So this is about the Chalcolithic period. So here, when we're discussing about the Neolithic and Chalcolithic, sometimes it is very hard, it is very difficult to distinguish the layer of Neolithic and Chalcolithic. And in some places, it is not present together. In some sites, we will get evidences of Mesolithic, Neolithic, then the early Histic or Iron Age culture. Some places we will get the Neolithic, Chalcolithic, and Iron Age culture. Sometimes we will not get evidences of Neolithic, but directly we will get the evidences of Chalcolithic. So there are some variants in which needs the expertise skill, expertise knowledge to distinguish the difference from one to another. So that's why in some places the sites are not clear and called the Neo-Chalcolithic culture. Neo-Chalcolithic. Why? Because the metal remains are present, the copper and bronze materials artifacts are present, along with the Neolithic tools. Since there was a less margin, less gap of time between the Neolithic and Chalcolithic, the continuation of Neolithic stone tool traditions, the Neolithic stone tool tradition, or the use of Neolithic artifacts like axe, adze, chisel, or what we are calling the celt, along with the ringstone and other artifacts, was continued during Chalcolithic time period also. So, so in the same raw material, same shape, same tool typology, and the same function, same technique of manufacturing found in the same area where the Chalcolithic evidences were also reported. So in such cases, it is very difficult unless until somebody is going for some absolute method of dating, which is always not possible. So that's why the archaeologists used to call the Neo-Chalcolithic period. Neo-Chalcolithic means use of Neolithic artifact along with the metal object, metal artifacts. So another findings of Neo-Chalcolithic or the Chalcolithic periods also includes the copper bangles, the copper spearhead, copper rings, and copper knives. So these are very typical to the Chalcolithic period. And because of the nature of soil, these particular copper materials or metal objects are sometimes not preserved very nicely. These are destroyed by the various natural agencies. There was a patination, there was a kind of erosion, there was some kind of damage mark because of various natural agencies. So nature was always not supportive in preserving archaeological evidences, and which is very clear from the Chalcolithic metal artifact. So another example also we might see the presence of plant and animal remains during the Neolithic and Chalcolithic times, or of the Neolithic and Chalcolithic times, are also not equally available. not equally evident from the archaeological sites. It used to differ from one site to another site. And the main reason behind it is the acidic nature of soil or the presence of acid in the soil. These acidic soils destroy the plant and animal products, especially the bone, teeth, or any kind of grains, cereals, or beans at a faster rate in comparison to the stone and metal objects. That's why in some archaeological sites where the percentage of your acid is quite high, hardly evidence the presence of different kind of bone and plant remains. However, the soil having more alkalic in nature, where the presence of acid is very less or in neutral, evident more number of plant and animal remains. In audition context, if you will see such kind of plant and animal remains, especially from the Neolithic and Chalcolithic culture, are more found from the coastal area rather than the hilly area of northern part, western part, and southern part. Because the hilly area, the soil is usually having more quantity of acid, and which used to destroy the plant products and animal products. So this is about the Chalcolithic culture. So in brief, Chalcolithic is a cultural period when the people were using both the metal, especially the copper and bronze, along with the stone artifacts. And this is the time period which came after the Neolithic period and before the Iron Age period. In the tentative time period, the broad time period of this Chalcolithic is from 2500 to year 4500 period. Or in other way, we can say the time period between the Neolithic and Iron Age period. And evidences are found from different areas, different localities, including the Odisha. And the best known or popular Chalcolithic sites includes the Harappan sites. Example, we may cite of the Harappa Mohenjo. And based on the development, this Chalcolithic culture is again divided into different stages, different groups. In some places, the use of copper and bronze are very less. Ceramics are very less, but in other places, the use of more ceramics and metal objects are very high. So based on that, these sites are named into different categories. So now coming to the megalithic time period. Megalithic time period. So here megalithic
Sir, one Jore culture, what is Jori
so,
culture?
not Jore, that is Jarwa culture.
Jarwa.
Jarwa culture, yeah, because Ahar culture, Jarwa culture. So these are the culture cultural period of different Chalcolithic time, and these are named based on the place of findings. So take an example, Ahar culture. We'll start from the Ahar, then we'll come to the Jarua. This is already Jarua, that is actually Jarua, pronunciation Jarua. So Ahar means a place
আচ্ছা
located in Rajasthan, okay, where
আচ্ছা
such kind of cultural evidences are found. Like Malwa. Malwa is located in central India, in MP. So where the chalcolithic evidences are found, the distribution of sites are located in that particular area. Similarly, the Jarua or Kayatha, these are also the name of the place. Jarua is located a place located in Maharashtra. Maharashtra. So as we are discussing, especially Neolithic culture onwards, there was a kind of what called the impact or influence of local ecology in cultural development. Suppose some area we are having the evidences of plain land, some area we are having evidences of hill, forest, or like that. Okay, and accordingly, the based on the available resources, raw material, the culture used to develop with slightly having local impact, local reflection. So this particular Jarwa culture, when we are saying, it is having the impact of particularly Western Ghat, which is covered with the forest area. Okay, so here in cultural evidences, we are getting more and more of the impact of their own locality. So they are using the stone tools, they were using the metal tool, but Jarwa culture, a typical variety of ceramics remains. Typical variety of pots were used, which were excavated from the different sites of Jarwa, including the Inamgam. Inamgam is a major Chalcolithic sites belong to this particular cultural period. So Jarwa culture is basically what we call that a kind of rural-based settlement. Even if we are having the evidences of metals, we are having evidences of ceramics, but their life is mainly confining to agro-based life, rural-based life, village-based life, or peasant life, where they were not only depending on the agriculture, they were also depending on the hunting, gathering, and domestication of animal, or what we are calling the stock raising. Okay, so these are the name of
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার
different stages of our Chalcolithic culture. Take an example in Odishan context, we can name that suppose in Neolithic or Chalcolithic culture. So Chalcolithic evidences we are getting from central India, Sankejong area, in coastal area. So we may name accordingly. Suppose we excavated a Chalcolithic site Golabai, so Golabai culture. So similar kind of evidences from where we are getting, we'll name in the similar way. What we discuss in similar way in prehistoric time also, like Acheulean culture, a Babylonian culture, but all are coming under the lower Paleolithic. So broad time period is the Chalcolithic. Within the Chalcolithic, based on slightly regional variant, based on the material remains what are collected, these sites are named either Jarua, Malwa, or Ahar, whatever it may be. So based on that type of the findings and the time period. Okay.
ওকে
So yeah. So now we'll move towards the megalithic culture. Mega means usually the big, huge. Lithic means stone. So huge stone. As you remember, we discussed about the Mesolithic culture. Mesolithic culture. Where we discuss the Mesolithic meso means the micro or middle. Microlithic culture. Micro means the middle, small. Lithic means the stone.
স্টোন
Yeah. In similar way, megalithic is just opposite to that. Here, mega means the big, huge, and lithic means stone. But this megalithic culture is the beginning stage of introduction of iron. Till Chalcolithic, we discussed the introduction of metal, and that metal limits only to the copper and bronze. Just remember this one. Till Neolithic, we are having evidences of use of only stone artifact. It is very clear, yeah? After Neolithic, Chalcolithic time, we are having evidences of copper and bronze. You can see the literature from the Harappa in Mohanda. Harappa Mohanda, you will get evidences of use of metal, but you will not get any evidences of use of iron, because that time iron was not introduced. Iron was not invented. But it does not mean that iron ore, iron rocks were not present. It was present. But processing of iron or iron smelting technique or smelting of iron from the iron ore was not invented, not known to human being. So that's why they were confining only to the use of metal, that is only the copper and bronze. So this megalithic culture is also the time period, the cultural period, which is also called the Iron Age culture. Iron Age culture. Why it is called Iron Age culture? Because iron was for the first time introduced during this particular time period, and usually we may tentatively bracket the time period, that is 1500 year BP to the a time period of around 100 or 150 year BC. 100, 1500 BP to around 100 to 150 BP. Sorry, yeah, BC.
This year.
BC, yeah, before Christ. So that is the time period, and which is the continuation of metallurgical culture. Because metallurgical culture, we are mainly having evidence up to the our 2500. That is the peak period. That is the peak period, which also used to goes up to the 2000 or up to the 1500 period. So it used to differ from site to site. In some places we are getting some early stages, some places we are getting the the advanced stages or later stages. So iron was introduced after that. And as we discussed earlier, in Neolithic revolution, in the similar way, the introduction of iron brought a drastic change in human culture. In Neolithic, we told this is the revolution. This is a big change in culture. But iron, introduction of iron brought a huge, a drastic change, because iron was very hard, durable, and comparatively easily accessible raw material in most part of the world. In several places, iron was easily available to our ancient people. So, in the similar process, they introduced smelting iron ore, and the smelted iron they use for preparing different kind of artifact object for different purpose, including hunting, gathering, agriculture, transportation, construction of houses, and the preparation of different kind of weapons and household artifacts. So, since this iron is comparatively durable than the stone artifact, as well as the metal artifact made of copper and bronze, people started using more and more this iron rather than the copper and stone. So whatever artifact object people were using, preparing with the stone and copper and bronze, they started preparing the similar kind of artifact object in iron because iron was durable. Iron was durable. So that helps them to change in their economy. Since it was durable, it helped them in their agriculture, tilling land. It helped them in transportation of goods. It helped them in hunting, gathering, and other activities. And that's why a big change occurred during the Iron Age time period. But here, what we are going to discuss, that is the megalithic culture, we will discuss a different dimension, even if this is very much part of the Iron Age culture, but our focus is on different area. Here, we will discuss how these megalithics are related to the human culture. Megalithic, one side, we are discussing about the Iron Age culture when people started using iron. And at the same time, here our emphasis is only on the megalithic culture, where we are hardly going to have discussion on use of iron. So thing is that this megalithic culture was introduced usually during the Iron Age period. One thing what we discussed in our previous classes about the knowledge of burial or the disposal of the dead body. And these evidences are reported starting from the Upper Paleolithic period. Mesolithic time also we are having evidences of disposal of dead body. Neolithic time also we are having the disposal of dead body. Chalcolithic time also we are having the disposal of dead body or burial of the dead body. So if there is a practice for disposing the dead body, which started from the middle part of Pleistocene epoch and continued till the Neolithic Chalcolithic of Holocene epoch, then what is the necessity of discussing the megalithic culture? So usually we used to think that we are discussing about the burial practices, cremation of the dead body. We have discussed about the grave goods. But what is the need of this megalithic culture? Yes, it is. Till that time, after bury a dead body, they were usually covering with the mud, sands, or up to some extent the small stones. But here the megalithic culture is related to the disposal of dead body in a specific way, and by performing certain kind of religious ritual practices. So where the people they used to bury the dead body inside the graves and covered with the mods, and finally they covered the graves part with a big size of stones, and it used to differ from one group of people to another group of people, one community to another community in terms of the size, shape, the direction of these stones. Besides the grave goods, the material, maybe ornaments, jewelry, or daily use materials, or any kind of food materials, what they buried along with the dead body also used to differ from one group of people to another group of people, one place to another place. So here in this particular part, megalithic culture, we will try to understand the types of megaliths. What are the types of megaliths? And in context of India, how it is related to different socio-religious activities, social organization, religious ritual practices, and how this particular megalithic tradition is related to the ethnicity, how it is related to a particular time period, chronology, etc., and the distribution of this megalithic. So here, at the time of discussing the types of megaliths, as I told that during early phase, people were burying the dead body, covering with the mods, and some extent with the small size of stones, where they are using multiple number of stone pieces sometimes to cover the entire area or entire grave area, or sometimes along sides of the graves. But in some places, we will have the evidence of placing of a single big stone, single huge stone on the grave. So here, based on this size of stone, the quantities of stones used to cover the graves, it is divided into two types. First one is monolithic type, monolithic, where mono stand for single, lithic stand for stone. So use of single piece of stone is called monolithic. And just opposite is polylithic. Poly stands for multiple, two or more number of two in quantities. So based on the number of stone used for covering the graves, it is divided into two types, monolithic and polylithic. So when we are discussing about the monolithics, where we told the use of single stone, and this monolithic is again divided into two types based on the direction of placing this stone. Sometimes the megalithics, particularly the monoliths, are found horizontally placed either on the graves or close to it. The placement is basically the horizontally. And most of the cases it placed just above the grave and covering the entire grave area. So only one piece of stone they use on the graves. But in some places, we'll see the use of monoliths other than the burial sites. Sometimes they placed a vertical stone close to the grave. Sometimes also some vertical stones are placed at the entrance of the village or at the center of the village or any some important places of the village where dead bodies are not present. So covering the dead body is called dolmen. Dolmen. And placing a vertical stone either close to the grave or the entrance of the village or any important location of the village is called menhir. Menhir. So the function also differ from menhir to dolmen. The function of dolmen is to protect the grave from different wild animals as well as to cover the graves for identification or to know the location of that particular grave. However, the function of menhir differs. Function of menhir is basically to indicates about different cultural characteristic features of that particular deceased person, of that particular dead person. Sometimes some person who was having some special achievements, he might be the headman of the village, headman of the community, clan, lineage, or a very respected person in that area. So, in memory of that particular person, the people used to place a memorial stone, which are called menhir, at different locations. Sometimes for a single person, you will see multiple number of menhir. But dolmens are usually one for one person. So these are the monolithic. Similarly, the polylithic type includes the dolmen. So here we discuss the dolmen in monolithic if that particular stone is single or individually present on the graves. But in some places what happen, those horizontal stones are placed above the graves, but along with that, there are a series of stones either placed horizontally, vertically around the graves. In that case, that is called the polylithic, means multiple number of stone. But if it is the only stone present horizontally, that is called dolmen. So here, the chiron is another polylithic type of memorial stone, megalithic stone, where a human made piles of stone, usually having a kind of conical shapes, are present, and the dead body is buried inside that. So it used as a kind of landmarks or a kind of identification to know that particular place. Similarly, the schist, a kind of memorial stone where the multiple number of stones are present around a hole where the dead body is placed. Dead body is placed. So encircling the place of burial. So these are some kind of types of megalithic found from different places, and based on their types, based on the quantity of stones, these are named in different way. So coming to the Indian context, these megalithics are found from different places, starting from South India to the North India, and from the Iron Age cultural period to the present ethnographic context. So, from the temporal point of view and from the spatial point of view, these megalithics are also divided into two categories and named accordingly. So, the megalithic culture usually found from the ancient time period are called the ancient megaliths, and the practice of megalithic tradition or erecting the menhirs or placing the dolmen on the graves are also evident from different sites, and the practice of using megaliths is still continuing by the different tribal groups of India. And based on the present practices of using megalithic culture by the tribal communities, it is known as the living megalithic tradition. Living megalithic tradition. So in eastern India, we'll see the living megalithic tradition among the Ho, Kolho, Munda tribes. So evidences of these megalithics are found in Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, and almost all northeast Indian states. But the ancient megalithic traditions are very common in South India, and that's why that is also called South Indian megalithic tradition. South Indian megalithic tradition. So here, this megalithic tradition, whether that is the South Indian megalithic tradition or the living megalithic tradition of Central, Eastern, and Northeastern Indian states. In both cases, it indicates about some kind of socio-cultural practices, about the social organization, about the economic condition, about the religious practices, about the ethnic affinity, about the skill of preparing grapes, and some extent about their artistic skill. So if we'll discuss about the connection of these megaliths to various socio-cultural areas, it is very easy to correlate, to get some kind of linkage of this megalithic tradition along with this socio-cultural practice. Take an example. If we are getting some kind of grave goods which are buried along with the dead body, that indicates about their cultural practices, about the material used by those people. Take an example, we are getting some kind of jewelry, ornaments made of any kind of metal, including gold. It indicates about their knowledge system, about their economic condition, etc. If we are getting some kind of ceramic pots, it used to help us to know the pot making tradition, which kind of pot they were using, and what are the material they were using for preparing these pots, how these pots were being utilized, etc. So that also indicates about the economic condition, that also indicates about the social organization or like that. So these are some kind of correlation linkage which help us to know their cultural connection. So now one question come into mind that we discuss the introduction of megalithic tradition from the Iron Age culture and which might continue till the very early period or at least 1500 year BC. Also we discuss the knowledge of burying the dead body from the Upper Paleolithic and Mesolithic time period. And at the same time also we discuss the practice is continuing among some of the tribal groups of India as well as other part of the world. So in such situation, a question came into our mind that if it is in practice among the present tribal group, if it was used during the Iron Age culture, then how we'll know the chronology, the time period of that particular burial. So for that, we used to go for some kind of theoretical explanation and some kind of available dates and some dating techniques. So one side we are discussing about the grave goods. So grave goods help us to determine the date. If we are getting some kind of ceramics, metals or stone tools, so we can go for the date of those materials and we'll know the date of that particular grave. So sometimes similar kind of materials, similar kind of pots are also buried in ethnographic context. But the ceramics will help us to identify the date, to inform the date. We can go for the TL dating, thermal emission dating, and that will tell how old that particular ceramic is. Or we can go for the radiocarbon dating if we are getting some kind of chard or charcoal or other organic material. So that will tell the date of that particular material. And sometime from the recent past point of view, we also used to get some documentary sources, written evidences about the living megalithic culture. That who are the people, how they are burying, or like this. So that help us to inform us about the chronology. So here, the megalithic is very important in studying archaeology. It not only helps to determine the date, but also very much helpful to know the different areas of cultural anthropology, including the economy, the ecology, the religious ritual practices, the social organization, the political organization, economic organization, etc. So this is about the megalithic culture. So in brief, this megalithic culture, we can say the megalithic culture is a cultural tradition which present alongside of the Iron Age culture, which introduced alongside the Iron Age culture, where people were using a huge size of stone either to cover the dead body or to place on some specific place in memory of that particular deceased person or particular that dead person. And this is having some kind of cultural significances. So this is all about this particular chapter. So today we discuss about the Neolithic and Chalcolithic culture, starting from the Neolithic revolution, the concept of big golden child, and there are four major areas: domestication of plant, domestication of animal, use of ceramics, and introduction of grinding and polishing technique. And also we discuss Neolithic regional variants. Some are aceramic, some are ceramics. Some of the Neolithic sites are present along with the plant remains, some are without plant remains. Some of the Neolithic sites are present on the hilltop, hill slope. Some of the Neolithic sites are present close to the water body or coastal area. Some of the Neolithic sites are present along with the evidences of ash, domestication of animal, especially from South Indian context. Then we discuss about the Chalcolithic culture, where we discuss about the use of both metals and stone artifacts. And also we discuss some example. Then we discuss about the megalithic culture, their types and their role in discussing different cultural materials. So this is all about this particular chapter. So if you are having any query, we can discuss, or otherwise we will close today's class and we will proceed for tomorrow. So if you are having any doubt, you may ask.
Sir, I think what was the program? Today is the last class. Program was communicated up to 13th March. Yeah, I want to know whether class will continue tomorrow onwards or not.
Yeah, because actually as per the original timetable, we are supposed to start from 29th, but later because of some other factors we started from the 4th, and in between we had one day break, that is
Yes,
on Shivaratri.
yes, yes.
So to me, if the authority or classroom is present there, and as I was instructed, we have to continue till the 14th, and 14th is the
Tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Sir,
So at least tomorrow we will have the classes. Then we'll go for the decision of the authority. So
sir,
tomorrow we'll meet at the same time, and I will request the authority to allow us one extra class, because since we have missed one classes to fulfill that part of discussion. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.